From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Good morning, security gang, or good afternoon here from Tel Aviv, Israel. It's great to be with every single one of you this morning. Packed show for all of y'all today. Really packed. In fact, we were doing the rundown of the show beforehand, and we were getting like 26 minutes. So I'm going to try and do it all in under 20 minutes this morning. And I know we started the show at 10, and now we're at 20. And I hope to never get to 30 because I just feel like that's really long. At that point, I'm doing a tonight show. So let's get right into this morning's show. But before we do that, join me for a coffee cup cheers, y'all. I've got my double espresso, my afternoon cup of Joe. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. All right. We've been talking about ToolShell for quite some time already. And the reason we have is very simple. It's a big deal. This SharePoint zero day is significant. And it's significant for a multitude of reasons. Timing being one of them, right? Timing being one of them. Absolutely being one of them. The other one, and I think a really big one, all right, is the fact that Microsoft is now under investigation by Senator Tom Cotton because allegedly, according to Senator Tom Cotton, and according to several whistleblowers within the government that talked about this yesterday on the show, some code that the federal government uses from Microsoft is being written in China. And now today, the breaking news of ToolShell this morning is the fact is now we know the Chinese were taking advantage of these 0 days for weeks across multiple APTs before it was discovered. Weeks. They're not saying how many weeks, but they're saying weeks. So it could be 2 weeks, could be 10 weeks, could be 20 weeks. We don't know. Now, if you're asking why is there a little bit of outrage in my voice, is because at some point, we have to admit that there's a conflict, a direct conflict in the fact that we cannot on one hand say that China is a direct adversary to the United States and to the West, and that they have a plan to destroy that, to become a major superpower, that they give these predatory loans to poor nations, that they bribe officials that are willing to sell out their countries resources for a few bucks in their own pockets all over the world. But the fact is that Microsoft hasn't learned anything from what Rockwell Automation is going through with the Department of Justice investigation into the fact that they're writing code in China in devices that are being deployed across our critical infrastructure, and that somehow they're saying that's safe. But whistleblowers and people locally are saying, we have no idea how they're writing code. We have no way of finding out whether or not it's got any backdoors. We don't know that. They're explaining it, but we kind of have to blindly believe them unless we go over every line of code. And then what's the point of having them write code to begin with? Now, additionally, we know that in China, there's a law on the books. A law on the books to every single Chinese national or every company that operates within China that says if you discover a 0 day, if you discover a vulnerability, you must first report it to the Chinese technology police, to the Chinese essentially cyber office, before you're able to disclose it to the manufacturer. And only after they've seen the disclosure of the vulnerability, you may then share it with the other company. Specifically meaning that in China, they see they've made it a punishable offense to report a 0 day to the company directly. And Microsoft has people writing code in China. Now, I don't know if SharePoint code was written in China. I don't know that. But I'm just saying that in the course of the last 3 days, today's Wednesday, so Monday, Tuesday, and today, we've seen this picture come together, and it's bleak. It doesn't look good for Microsoft. It does not look good for Microsoft. And so one has to ask himself, what is Microsoft doing? And what's Microsoft going to do to remedy the situation and earn trust? We now know that two state-sponsored threat actors tracked as Linen Typhoon and Violet Typhoon have both been attempting or have attempted to use the ToolShell vulnerabilities for initial access. In addition, another group has seen Storm 2603 with links to China taking advantage of it. Microsoft and their end are confusing everyone. They're saying, well, we don't know that it's China. Everyone else says it's China. If you don't think it's China, then please show the proof, but you don't have it because the liability here is significant. Once the companies that have been breached through SharePoint start disclosing these data breaches, Microsoft is looking at a CrowdStrike-like event. Only instead of an outage, it's breach related. And there could be a negligence here, pure and simple. Because under what rock have people in Redwood been living under to not understand that the Chinese are a national security threat to the United States? Their own reports, the Microsoft Threats Group's own report, highlight over and over and over Chinese cyber activity in the wild all day long. So are they running for legal cover at this point? We won't know, but time will tell. Time will tell. Frustration lies with that because Microsoft knows better. All right, we need to pay the bills. Today, we need to pay the bills. Thanks to our friends over at ThreatLocker. So before we go into the SOFA story here, which is significant because it's 5 different vulnerabilities that they patched in their firewalls, there's a whole thing around controls that ThreatLocker can help you with. Here's a message from our friends over at ThreatLocker. Do zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks keep you up at night? Worry no more. You can harden your security with our friends at ThreatLocker. Imagine taking a proactive deny-by-default approach to cybersecurity, blocking every action, process, and user unless specifically authorized by your team. ThreatLocker helps you do this and provides a full audit of every action allowed or blocked for risk management and compliance. Onboarding and operation is fully supported by their US-based support team. Stop the exploitation of trusted applications within your organization to keep you running efficiently and secure, protected from ransomware. Worldwide companies like JetBlue trust ThreatLocker to secure their data and keep their business operations flying high. To learn more about ThreatLocker, if you're in Vegas for Blackad, go check out their booth, 1933 on the floor, and tell them I sent you. All right. Thank you to our friends over at ThreatLocker for their support of the show. Go check them out when you're at Hacker Summer Camp next in just a few short weeks. I'll be there as well. Come say hi. So the first issue, track the CVE 2025-6704. This is the Sophos firewall, 5 different vulnerabilities. This one is significant. This is the most significant of the 5. It's got a CVSS score of 9.8. It's a critical arbitrary file writing flaw in the secure PDF exchange feature of the appliance. This requires a remote unauthenticated attacker to execute arbitrary code. It's a low complexity type of attack. They're saying that this bug only impacts a fraction of firewall deployment because it can only be triggered if a specific configuration of SPX is enabled and if the firewall is running in high availability mode, which they say is again low complexity, low availability. All in all, this is CVE 2025-6704. There's also CVE 2025-7624. This also has a CVSS score of 9.8, and it's an SQL injection issue in the legacy SMTP proxy of the appliance. There's 3 additional versions, but by the way, all the hot fixes will be on our website at cyberhubpodcast.com. The AMEOS Group, an operator of a massive healthcare network in Central Europe in countries like Switzerland, Germany, and Austria that employs 18,000 people and over 100 hospital clinics, rehab centers, and nursing homes, is now notifying people that they were victims of a data breach that exposed customer, employee, and partner information. The company, a $1.4 billion annual revenue type of organization, is one of the largest private hospitals in the DACH region of Europe. They're saying that the data that was compromised belongs to patients, employees, and partners, as well as some contact information relating to you or your company may have been affected due to this unauthorized access, according to the announcement. It's not ruling out this data may be used on the internet to the detriment of those affected or made accessible to any sort of third parties. People who've received care at their facilities are advised to remain vigilant against phishing and scam attempts. That's also very important to put in notices. So there's no specific evidence of any actual leak of personal data as of yet. And once they finish their investigation measures, they'll be given everyone notification of exactly what data of theirs was compromised. So they're reporting that as well. For all the browser fans out there, Google and Mozilla, that's Chrome and Firefox, are both now divulging new versions, solving several significant vulnerabilities within their products. Chrome 138 is fresh off its third update since the browser version was promoted to the stable channel, resolving two exploited 0 days CVE 2025-6558 and 6554. Firefox, for their end, also pushed 141 to the stable channel with 17 security fixes. Again, a lot of it relating to the JavaScript engine that they continuously keep working on these Chromium browsers. So you want to make sure you auto patch these ASAP as well. CISA and the FBI, as well as HHS, the ISAC, and many others are bringing more and more attention to the Interlock ransomware group that's really kind of been targeting healthcare organizations, but they've really had a broad set of victims, which isn't traditional in a lot of ransomware groups. What does that specifically mean? It means a lot of these ransomware groups go after a specific vertical for a little while, abuse that vertical, and move. We saw that with Scattered Spider, with airlines, and before that was manufacturing, and before that it was healthcare. These guys are all over the place. So that's why you're seeing a really, really broad advisory coming from all of these different organizations. They're specifically talking about double extortion attacks, meaning they may reach out to you, say, we've done X, we're not ransomwaring you, or we're issuing a ransomware, but pay us something, we'll go away. And then they come back and double down on it. The advisory also shares indicators of compromise that have been collected during some of these incidents. This group's been linked to some of the click fix attacks we've talked about here on the show. Also, file fix attacks are also part of their IOCs. So two things to be really, really made aware of as well. To defend against Interlock ransomware attacks, the advisory talks about implementing DNS filtering, web access firewalls, and training users to recognize social engineering attempts. Defenders are also urged to keep systems, software, and firmwares up to date. So practice good cybersecurity hygiene. Do that as well. Lumma Stealer, which in May we celebrated their takedown, are now back up and running according to Trend Micro. So 2,300 malicious domains were taken down back in May, with Microsoft and law enforcement agencies kind of taking away the backbone of the Lumma Stealer infrastructure. Now the threat actors behind it, who may have not been captured or disrupted, have put up a new infrastructure with hundreds of new CNC URLs spotted in the weeks after the takedown. And again, you take down one infrastructure to go around, they do it all over again. It works. They know it works, so they keep going about it. In recent campaigns, the Lumma Stealer had been distributed via websites offering fake software cracks, serial key generators, and even free software. Compromised websites set up to leverage the click fix method have also been used for some of their malware distribution. You want to keep an eye out on their TTPs and IOCs. The British government in the UK is planning to ban public sector and critical infrastructure organizations from paying ransom after ransomware attacks. These entities in the new proposed legislation would include local councils, schools, and publicly funded NHS services. So there's a concept here. Look, I don't know how I know how I feel about it, and it's a toss up. So if the idea here by the British government is that by outlawing these companies to make ransomware, it may be a way to detract threat actors from going after those specific organizations, there might be something to it. But will it? Or will they double down? Or will it be state sponsored doing damage in order to weaken, local councils, schools, governments, etc.? I don't know. And so the legislation hasn't passed yet. It's likely going to pass. And when it does, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in the realm of threat actors and how this plays out in terms of resiliency from their organizations. Interesting. I don't know how I don't know that it's going to work. All right. A story here from the Cybersecurity Dive. on the government preparing to decrease its cybersecurity support for critical infrastructure organizations. No. So here's what's happening. I actually got to the bottom line of this because the alleged of this article, the premise of it is that they're cutting down federal funding for all these critical infrastructure organizations and various organizations within the federal government. But that's not the case. Here's what's happening. The federal government is obviously shrinking its size, and then it's saying we don't need to be at the center of everything. The federal government isn't good at all things, but we believe that the states should have some act of responsibility for the critical infrastructures within their own states. And so, while they're shrinking the size of some of these federal agencies, because if you've ever tried to work with CISA, Secret Service, or FBI, great people work there, but they're overworked, they're underfunded, and they don't always give you the support. You may be sent to the website to pull a resource. If you want to get something done, it's years in work. I mean, if you've had to deal with them and you're not a Fortune 100 company, if you're not a really, really big company, you don't get the support. But guess where you can get the support? At the state level. So if the state's empowered to provide support to its critical infrastructure organizations while letting the state rely on their work with CISA, which is, I think, a better model because it'll encourage entrepreneurship and innovation at the state level. That is harder, that it will be easier to crack for local businesses in order to help the state with its resiliency than federal programs, which take forever. Talk to any VC. And go to any VC today and say, I have a business going after government. I'm going to solve government problems. And you're going to get $0. You're going to get $0 because that sales cycle is 18 to 24 months. Easy. So you got to have that much runway. And you don't even know if you won. You don't even know if you're going to get the deal until the contract's awarded in some cases. So doing this at the state level, funding the states, taking that money that you're cutting from federal agencies, turning that money over to the states is actually a good thing. It makes the local critical infrastructure organization stronger. The federal government isn't going anywhere. CISA's not disbanding. The DOE is not disbanding. None of them are going away. But now it becomes a state effort with those organizations, which becomes more manageable at the federal level. And that's how the founders wanted it. I know it's rough, but the state should have more power than the federal government. That's one of the visions of the founders in the Federalist Papers. Go check it out. A lot of a long article about how this is bad and it's all bad. I don't think it's as bad. I actually think it's going to become better once the states actually take it and run with it. And competent states like the state of Georgia and Governor Kemp will be able to take this and run with it. And it'll make our state better, and I'm sure many others as well. Finally, Replit, a browser-based AI coding platform, is coming under some scrutiny after it deleted an entire code base in production run and then lied about it like a 4-year-old would. The controversy began when Jason Lemkin, a well-known VC and founder of SaaSTR, reported that the Replit AI tool not only wiped out a production database without authorization, but also lied about it. In a very popular X thread. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely great. So Lemkin started this 12-day vibe coding experiment using natural language prompts to direct Replit's AI in building commercial grade apps. He was praising the tool early on, saying it's more addictive than any video game. Well, kind of as things started to go along, the AI agent ignored a bunch of code freezes. It was asked and instructed to make requests to seek permission before making any changes. It didn't. And then it kind of admitted, you told me to ask for always to ask for permission, but I ignored all of it. Kind of like how you're a kid. Why'd you do that? Well, I kind of wanted to do it. So not to the dog bite on Replit, but their CEO Amjad Masad did put a whole post on X replying to Jason, apologizing for the issue. And really trying to work on fixing it. It just lets you know, folks, in today's age, you can't just trust these models blindly. AI has a mind of its own, and we're quickly finding out just how good it is. So there's that. By the way, what's the latest RAT? This whole episode's been about RATs, buddy. Go check it out, customer. So For everyone tuning in, thank you so much for being part of the show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern with the latest cybersecurity news. Also on Friday, a great exclusive episode that will only be available at cyberhubpodcast.com. And then on Saturday, it'll air everywhere else. So if you're not a subscriber at cyberhubpodcast.com, it's free to subscribe. You'll get the video and audio interview directly in your inbox on Friday with Rob from ThreatLocker. We talk about controls and so much more. It'll always, all of these new episodes that are going to be dropping will no longer drop on Friday. They'll all drop on Saturday on every platform. They'll only be available a day early at cyberhubpodcast.com. So go subscribe there. Until then, have a great rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, with the latest. And most importantly, y'all, patch your networks and stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.